Hi, I'm Jay Durkin again, and we're now going to go into what I call the rules for listening. I know that if I give you specific rules that you can guide your behavior by, that you'll remember the rule when perhaps you won't necessarily remember the technique or exactly the way to do the listening. If you can get some of these rules down and you can generate them as a reminder, as a way to guide your sales call. Look, we can't script every interaction that you have with a prospect. Your phone call, every phone call is different. Every face-to-face meeting with a prospect is different. Every Facebook interaction that you have with someone, we cannot script things exactly the way that they happen in real life. It's impossible. But if you have a rule that you can use that will kind of guide you in the direction of where to go, what to ask, and will guide your behavior on how you should be in a sales call. So learn the rules, remember the rules, and they'll guide you as you are going along and talking and listening to your prospects. Rule number one, your antenna must always be up. You must always be watching for the signs that your prospect will give you as it relates to whatever you're asking about or whatever you're talking about. So one of the things that I teach in my seminars is that I teach that when I say that your antenna needs to be up, you need to be very attentive in a sales call. You need to watch everything. You need to listen to everything. You need to really, get focused in on your prospect and really watch what's going on with their facial expressions, with their eyes, with the way that their body language, the way they're holding themselves. If, for example, if they're talking, if they're speaking, or if you're talking and they're sitting there and they're tapping, it kind of looks like Groucho Marx. If there's, you're talking to someone and you see that they're tapping their pen, on the desk, or the foot is shaking, or they keep looking past you or beyond you, or being distracted by something that's in their office or that is in the place that you're, say you're in a coffee shop or something and they keep looking over you or they're distracted. You need to understand that everything that the prospect, every way that they look, from their eye contact to their expression to the way that they hold themselves when you make certain statements or ask certain questions, will give you a lot of information about whether or not your discussion with them, your listening, your presentation is actually landing in some kind of a positive way. And one of the things that when you have your antenna up and you're really looking and you're noticing these nuances, what you'll start to do as you become a good listener is you'll actually start to call the person on any of their body language that is incongruent with what they're saying or what you're trying to accomplish. For example, if you do see them, perhaps someone will look at their watch a lot as you're talking. I've been in sales interactions with people. You're trying to present to them, you're trying to ask them questions, and they're doing this. They're looking at their watch. Now, you can ignore that if you want, but what I would suggest is that you take the cue and that you, in a very nurturing way, you say to them, is this a bad time for us to be talking? If you say it in a very nurturing way and use what I call your wounded child voice. Your wounded child voice is a nurturing voice. It is the voice that you use if you are going to call your prospect on any of their incongruent body language because your antenna's up and you're watching. So if I see the prospect looking at the watch, now let's talk about wounded child voice. Wounded child voice is a very nurturing way to call somebody out on something and do it in a way that does not antagonize the prospect. Here's what wounded child voice means. if you've ever, if you have children, or you've seen someone that when a child comes to you and the child is upset, if they're hurting, and they come to you with that, that hyperventilation thing going on, and hey, I was playing with my brother and he hit me with that bat and it is aluminum, right? And they've got that, if you've ever had a kid that's got that, they can't calm themselves down, they're upset, they're crying uncontrollably. How do you speak to a child like that? You certainly don't take a big deep breath in and say, what's wrong with you? Why were you playing with him? Why did you let him hit you? The more that you raise your voice, or the more that you take a breath in and you speak loudly, you'll tend to upset the child. So we all know that we use what I call the wounded child voice, and it sounds like this. It's okay, sweetheart. It'll be all right. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's all right. Come to dad. Come to mom. I'll take care of it. We'll handle it. Just calm down. And again, it's okay. Calm down. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. So we all know that soothing voice. By the way, when you're using that voice, notice that when you take a breath in, and if you wanted to say something forceful to someone, for example, if you've ever seen a little kid blow, they'll, as they get ready to blow in the grocery store, they'll, or out in the driveway, they don't want to get into the car and go to grandma's or something, they'll take a deep breath in and go, I don't want to go to grandma's house. And in order to be aggressive, to make aggressive statements, we actually have to breathe in and then force that statement out. When you're making a wounded child voice statement, you're actually making the statement on the out breath. And on the out breath, what you're saying is, Mr. Prospect, I noticed that you looked at your watch a couple of times. Is now a bad time for us to be talking? Did I come at a bad time? Or maybe now's not a good time for us to be speaking. So I'm calling them on it. I'm not telling them they're being rude. I'm simply noticing that they've looked at their watch a number of times. If I see them looking over me and they keep being distracted by everything around them, I might say, it seems like maybe I'm not really catching your interest here. Is there some part of this that is not catching your interest? Am I not somehow grabbing your attention with what we're talking about? You seem like you're a bit distracted. If you say that on the out breath, if you say it in a kind of a soft, nurturing way, you will not upset the prospect. Of course, you could say it like, so am I bothering you? Is this distracting you in some way? Are you distracted about my conversation? Is something wrong? You see how that tone invites some kind of a fight. Obviously, to be a good listener, you want to call the prospect on their body language that's incongruent, but you don't want to create any disrapport. Now, disrapport is not a word, so that's why the wounded child voice is used as you're keeping your antenna up and you're literally watching your prospect like a hawk. I often say you need to watch them like a hawk, and you need to listen with the ears of a kit fox, because you really have to be noticing everything. You just can't be presenting and talking and not caring about what you're seeing in your prospect's eyes, in their body language. By the way, a tremendous place to keep your antenna up and to look is to look right here on the ridge of someone's forehead, because right there in this kind of the eyebrow line is where you will see if your discussion is landing on someone in a positive way or if it's landing on them in a negative way. And you've all seen it. Make a statement to someone that they would find negative, or that they would say that they don't accept, or they don't like, or they're opposed to. Say some political statement that they wouldn't like. You'll notice as you make a statement that doesn't land well, the prospect will actually narrow their eyes slightly and the brow will kind of close down. And think about it, you've actually seen this with people where you'll be discussing something with them, giving them some information, and you'll see that kind of look come across here, a look of consternation. I sometimes call it a constipation face. It's probably a little too graphic, but they will tend to do this when something is not, when they don't like it. Conversely, if you're making statements, you're making your presentation, you're asking questions, and the prospect is responding well to them, you'll see this area will tend to be very open. A person may be nodding, and this whole ridge here will be open, the eyes will be wider. There may even be some nodding going on, some body language that shows that they're following you, and they're liking what they're hearing. Again, you want to be noticing, because if you're talking about your product, your opportunity, your company, and you're seeing this kind of a look, you might want to stop, use your wounded child voice, because you're keeping your antenna up and you're seeing it, and you might say, I get the feeling that what I'm saying really isn't resonating with you. It's not really fitting. I see that there's something about what I'm saying that doesn't fit right. So, for example, your prospect may say something like, well, you're talking to me about your meal replacement shake, but I don't like shakes. I can't stomach them. They bother me. I can't swallow them. Probably a good thing that you stopped and said, is there something about my product that I'm discussing with you that is a problem for you? Yes, it is a problem. I don't like those kinds of products. I can't eat them, or I can't ingest them, or I'm allergic to them. And for you to just continue to make your presentation or ask questions about that, and to ignore what the signs that they're giving you that they're not responding. This can, and by the way, this can be very, you've got to really keep your eyes open, because this can be very imperceptible, this look across here. Now, I've heard body language experts try to say that, if a person is touching their face, they're interested. If they're tapping their finger, they're not interested. I've heard all kinds of, if their arms are crossed, they're in a combative position and they're not listening to you. I don't know that any of that is true, unless if you see it and you feel it. And usually if you see it and you feel it, and you feel that they are, along with this, are being unresponsive, that might be a good time for you to find out if that is true. As a matter of fact, sometimes people cross their arms while you're talking because it's just comfortable for them. Sometimes they cross their legs because it's comfortable. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. By the same token, you want to take in the entire picture as you're talking with someone and as they're relating to you, as you're discussing your product, your service, your opportunity, and giving some form of your presentation. So I gave you a couple of great techniques there. Number one, be watching, keep the antenna up, watch for any signs that they give you that show that the presentation is not being received well. Look for that space around right here on the ridge of the eyes. That narrowing will tell you that they're not responsive, or that they're resisting. A very open face will certainly give you the feeling that they're more receptive to whatever you're talking about. Watch everything. Watch them as they look at different things. They're distracted by things. Again, and I would agree, someone who is not focused on what you're saying, or is being distracted, or is really not listening to you, literally will sit there while they're waiting for you to finish. Will do some kind of tapping, or they'll be looking at their phone while you're talking. All indications that what you're discussing is not landing well and is not fitting well. So always keep your antenna up. Watch for everything that your prospect does in a sales call. is important for you to be aware of. You don't have to mention every single little thing, but you do want to be aware of the way that your conversation and your bonding and your rapport and your presentation is landing